Hello guys. For your iGameC or your introduction to game concepts, our module 3 is regarding video game genres. Okay, so let's start. So for the objectives, at the end of this lesson, students should be able to learn the following. First, learn the different genres of games. Learn the different games under different game genres. Learn the different mechanics and main identifying features of different game genres. So first, let's start with what is a game genre or a subgenre? So basically, it refers to a particular type or style of game. So the most widely used game classifying system categorizes games into multiple genres. That will be your action, adventure, fighting, puzzle, role-playing, simulation, sports, and strategy. And aside from the aforementioned, we have a lot more of game genres, but for now, we'll be specifying only the most popular and most commonly seen game genres. Okay? Next, uh, they are classified to define games in terms of having a common style or a set of characteristics. So, such as defined in terms of perspective, gameplay, interaction, or objective. So basically, guys, a genre or a subgenre is simply a categorization of games based on their characteristics. Okay, so here are some of the examples of your game genres and your subgenres. The first one that we have is your shooter game. So roots in early 60s with Steve Russell's Space War. Okay, shooters are games that require the players to blow away enemies or objects in order to survive and continue gameplay. So basically, guys, the main objective in shooter games is it's either to destroy your enemies by shooting at them or destroying objectives or shooting objectives in order for you to have a score. Okay? So, classic shooter game examples include Defender, Galaga, R-Type, Phoenix, Space Invaders, Tempest, Civius, and Zaxxon. Now, regarding the main identifying feature of shooter games, so here are some of the examples. So the first that we have is game objective is to shoot or kill enemies or targets. Weapons and ammos can be collected or upgraded in the game. So scoring system are based on kills or hits. Simple game objectives with very little plot. So specialized gun controls often used in games such as Super Nintendo's Duck Hunt. So let's try to see an example of shooter game. So this is your Galaga. So some of you may be familiar of this game. So in Galaga, so basically what you're doing in here is you're shooting away your enemies. So let's say for example in here, you have your main plane in here. Okay, you have enemy planes. In order for you to have a score, what you need to do is to shoot down all these enemies. Every time that you shoot down these enemies, he'll be gathering a score. Okay, so these are your score. Now, um, okay, so as you can see, aside from that, the user interface for this game will also have the number of lives your character has, okay, and also the high score. So again, the main objective of shooter games will be to shoot out enemies or targets. In this particular example, in Galaga, you need to shoot down enemies, okay, in order for you to have a score. Now, so let's continue. So aside from shooter games, we also have the first person shooter game. So basically, your FPS or your first person shooter is a subgenre of your shooter game. So subgenre, which is this is more specific. This is regarding the point of view that is being used for this genre of game. So this is an example of a subgenre that has grown enough to become its own genre. So in fact, because of the prevalence of these games, many people use the term shooter to refer to first-person shooters, or I'll be referring to them as FPS games or first-person shooter. So basically, what's the main differentiation between your FPS and your shooter games? In FPS, guys, what's different is the point of view. Okay? In first-person shooter, your point of view is in first person, meaning you are, it seems to be the character that is on the game. So, whatever your character sees, it is what is being displayed on your screen. Okay, so as you can see, for FPS, most of the time, what you'll be seeing is the surroundings and only the hand and weapon that is available to your character. You won't be seeing your whole character. What you're going to see now, guys, is just the point of view of your character. Point of view of your character. So these are real-time, fast-paced action games in which the player navigates an environment from a first-person perspective and usually blows everything away whenever possible. So, though this is relatively new genre since in the early 90s, it has grown in popularity. So, these are some of the examples of your FPS games. So, we have your Half-Life, Doom, Far Cry, Descent, Marathon, GoldenEye, Halo, and Quake. Now, um, uh, let's see an example of a game under FPS. So I assume most of you guys are familiar with this game. So this game is called Counter-Strike. So basically in this game, what you're going to see is you have your character playing. Okay, so in first-person perspective. So as I've mentioned earlier, what you're only going to see in your character will be the hand and the weapon and the surroundings, as if you're the player. So basically, what your character sees in the game, that is what will be what will be displayed on your monitor. Okay. Now, so let's continue. So for the main identifying features of FPS games, so players behind the eyes of the game character. So gameplay is fast-paced and typically requires actions to be performed reflexively. So large selection of weapons and ammos often contain violent and graphic content. So that will be for your FPS game. So the next genre that we have is your adventure game. So these were initially text-based games like Wheel Crawlers, Colossal Cave, and the original Zorks games. There are always been a strong following for this genre because of the challenge of puzzle solving and general lack of violence. So typically, the player is the protagonist of the story, and in order to progress, must solve puzzles. So the puzzles can often involve manipulating and interacting in-game objects or characters. So basically, guys, in this type of games, you'll be exploring all the contents that you'll be seeing in your surroundings. So basically, you'll be interacting with objects or characters, etc., etc. So let's say, for example, if you want to proceed into a particular, let's say, progress in the game, most of the time you'll be checking all of the items that are available in the setting. Okay? Or you might need to interact with several characters in order for you to progress into a game. So, the original versions of adventure games were text-based adventures, meaning most of the time what you'll be doing is you'll be selecting texts, okay, that are being displayed in the screen with minimal graphics only. But this type of game like Grim Fandango are mostly graphical, okay? So we have examples of adventure games. So this will be the following. So Zelda, Grim Fandango, Indiana Jones, King's Quest, Monkey Island, Fahrenheit, Police Quest, and Little Big Adventure. Now, so let's try to see an example of an adventure game. So this game is what we call Grim Fandango. So let's check what is the gameplay. Okay, so as you can see, guys, as I've mentioned earlier, you need to explore objects and characters within the game in order for you to proceed into a game. So let's say, for example, in the screenshot, you need to examine an item. So if you examine all the items, you will be provided with different informations that could be useful in problem solving or in finishing the game. Okay? So in this type of games, this adventure games usually utilizes the point and click system, wherein your character or in order for you to play the game, what you're going to do is you need to click onto the surroundings or onto items in order for you to proceed. There is no left and right, forward, backward navigation in here. Okay, so you won't be using your ASDW or your arrow keys in order for you to navigate the whole surrounding. What you're going to do is if you want to navigate it, you want to explore things, you'll be using your left click on your mouse to examine everything that is that has the game. So as you can see, we have a pointer in here during the game. So this is the only control that you will be allowed to use while playing the game. So that will be one of the main characteristics of a adventure game. Now, so let's continue. So in summary, the main identifying features of an adventure game would be the following: detailed plot and character, background stories, variety of game objectives or missions, can casually switch between different camera views. It's either first person or third person. So puzzle, problem, or following clues usually form the part of the gameplay. And usually adventure games, guys, as I mentioned earlier, utilizes point and click system. So meaning, if you want to explore the game, if you want to explore your surrounding, what you're going to do is to point your cursor and click at them. As I mentioned earlier, there is no ASWD keys or arrow keys that you can use for navigation. The only thing or the only control that you have for the game is your pointer or your mouse pointer and your left click. Next, let's have action games. So action games are typically real-time games where the users need to be involved in a second-by-second basis. So examples of this will be your arcade games and racing games. So what do we mean by second-by-second basis? Meaning, guys, you're playing the game in real time. So whatever the moves that you'll be doing using your controls in real time will be displayed onto your monitor in real time. Okay? Meaning, in order for you to play these games, okay, you must have the hand and eye coordination. Okay? You must have the proper reflex in order to perform actions or combos or mechanics within this game. So the storytelling is often confined to the splash screen. So what a splash screen is basically a short video that will be played during your game. It could be in the beginning or during the game or at the end of the game. So are typified by fast-paced events and movements which often have to be performed reflexively. Games such as Pong, Space Invaders initially defined this genre. Okay, so let's have an example of an action game. So in here, we have your Cyberpunk. So as you can see, this player is using Nintendo Wii in order for him to control the game. So let's see how does the game play. So as you can see, you need to control the controller in order for you to bounce your ball within the surrounding. So you can only do this if you have the right reflexes and skills to perform the game. So action games are skills-based type of games. You can win these games based on your skill. Okay? Okay now guys, so let's continue. So the next genre that we have is your action-adventure game. So this genre is basically a combination of your action and adventure game. So an action-adventure game is a hybrid game genre that combines the elements of the adventure game genre with various action game elements. So the classic Tomb Raider and the Legend of Zelda games are often said to be the birthplace of this genre. So action-adventure games can be described in terms of a blend of characteristics associated with both adventure and action. So, for example, often involving both exploration and puzzle solving alongside with fast-paced action sequences. So, exploration and puzzle solving will be identifying features or gameplay for an adventure game. And fast-paced action sequences will be the main identifying feature from your action game. So, wherein in action adventure, this gameplays will be both combined. Okay? So, what are the examples of your action adventure games? So, here are some of the examples. You have your Legend of Zelda, Tomb Raider, Uncharted, or Tomb Raider Uncharted, Grand Theft Auto, and Assassin's Creed. So, let's check out an example of a game under action adventure. So this game is Assassin's Creed. Okay? So basically, in order for you to progress into this game, you'll be needing to explore, okay, the surroundings or the map that is available for you as a player character. Okay, there will also be problem solving and quest and objectives that you need to finish for this game, and there will be also action sequences that you need to perform within this game. So let's say for example, in this particular scenario, you need to kill these enemies in order for you to progress to the game. So this is an example of your action adventure game. So this is what you call Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Okay, so let's proceed with the main identifying features of your action adventure. So, faster paced and more violent than your adventure games. Gathering items into inventory. Inventory is basically a type of storage for the in-game items that you can collect or you can loot within the game. Conversing and learning from non-player characters, or we call NPCs, is also part of the main identifying feature of this game genre. Puzzle solving or following clues usually form part of the gameplay. And a combination of simple adventure controls with reflective actions of our actions or shooter games. Okay. Now, after your action adventure games, you also have your platform games. So it is believed that the platform game genre began in 1981. So with the release of the games Donkey Kong and Space Panic. So traditionally, platform games were sided on 2D in perspective and very popular on early gaming. So here are some of the screenshots of the game for your platform game. So we have your Super Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog. So games within this genre are usually identified by navigating environments that require timing or jumping in order to reach a destination while avoiding and or disposing of enemies. As companies began to develop platform games for home consoles and computers instead of arcade machines, for example, your Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo Entertainment System, they took advantage of the evolving processors and greater memory capacity by transcending individual screens and utilizing actively side-scrolling worlds. So when we say side-scrolling worlds, these are the type of games wherein your character or you as a player are allowed to navigate the game from left to right only. Okay? So that is what we call your side-scrolling worlds. So classic platformer games include Pitfall, Super Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario 64, Little Big Planet, and Super Mario 3D Land. So let's check a sample video. So let's see this Super Mario. So this is the user interface that you'll be seeing for Super Mario. Okay? So, why did they call this genre platformer? Okay? So, that will be because of these platforms. So, in this type of games, in order for you to achieve the goals or to collect items or coins or sometimes to dispose enemies, you'll be needing to jump onto these platforms. Okay? So, that's why they called it platformers. These are floating platforms within the game that you can jump onto. Okay? So, I assume everyone's familiar with Super Mario and how to play Super Mario. Okay? So, this will be the sample user interface or gameplay for Super Mario. Now, let's continue. So, in summary, the main identifying features of a platformer games are the following. So, the gameplay focuses on navigating a level via jumping from platform to platform. Timing of jumps and avoiding enemies are also key gameplay features. Missing a platform usually result in the death of the main character and respawn. So, respawn, guys, it means that your character will be revived but it will be reduced in life. Okay? So, character usually have lives as opposed to a health bar. So, that will be for your platform games. Now, let's proceed with the next genre. So, the next genre that we have are your role-playing games or your RPGs. Originally started out as video game based on pen and pencil games like Dungeons and Dragons, a fantasy theme is often retained. So, often characterized in terms of providing the player with flexibility in terms of the character's development, problem resolution, and etc. So, RPGs are special type of adventure games that usually incorporate three major elements. So these three major elements are the ones that differentiates RPG to other games to other genres such as adventure games or fighting games or action games. So the first one will be a specific quest. The number one is a process for evolving a character through experience to improve his or her ability to handle deadlier foes. The careful acquisition and management of inventory item for quests. So, for example, weapons, armors, healing items, foods, and tools. Okay? So, remember these three. So, these are the three major elements that differentiates RPG games from other genres of games. So, here are some of the classic RPG games that will be your Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy series, Elder Scroll, Mass Effect, and Fallout. So, let's try to check game. So, this is a video of the game Diablo 3. So, basically guys, in this type of RPG game, you can select different types of characters that you can play within the game. Okay? So, you can play barbarians, magicians, etc., etc., etc. So, you can select the character that you want to play during the beginning of the game. So, as you can see, what you can see within this user interface these are the party members. Okay? So, these are your party members or your co-players within the game. So, in here, you'll be seeing the potions that are being used. So, this is the bar that represents the mana potion and your health potion. These are your skills and these are your buffs. So basically in RPG games, you'll be needing or you need to accomplish objectives or quests in order for you to progress, to have experience for you to have experience for your character and for them to level up in order to become stronger and to fight more deadlier foes. Okay, so let's continue. So in summary, the main identifying feature of an RPG game are the following. So player plays as a single avatar that they customize as the game evolves. So when we say avatar, so basically it refers to the character that you're playing within the game. Okay? Character abilities also involve and develop as the game progresses. So in this type of games, the gameplay usually will introduce you experience points. So every time you kill characters or you kill enemies or monsters, you'll be gaining experience points. And these experience points are used for you to level up in order for you to gain more power or to gain more stats or to wield items within the game. So, game objective is usually a large overall quest broken down into smaller missions. Collecting of items to an inventory for later use, meeting and conversing with non-player characters. Now, let's continue with the subgenre of RPG. So, we have your MMORPG or your massively multiplayer online role-playing game. So, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game is an evolution of the RPG genre, which is set in a persistent virtual world populated by thousands or sometimes hundreds thousands, millions of other players around the world. So, MMORPGs can be viewed as evolving from text-based MUDs or MUDs in mid to late 1990s. So, example of MUDs will be your text-based Dungeons and Dragons. So, here are some of the examples of your MMORPGs. So, we have Ultima Online, World of Warcraft, EVE Online. So, the first highly popular MMORPG was Ultima Online, whilst World of Warcraft holds the honor for being the most popular. So, apart from MMORPGs, there are also sizable communities around online first-person shooter and strategy games. Example, that will be your Battlefield 2. So, famous MMORPGs include Ultima Online, World of Warcraft, Terra, Ragnarok Online, The Elder Scroll, Guild Wars, Rift, and EVE Online. So, let's check a sample video of an example of your MMORPG. So, this game is what we call Ragnarok Eternal Love. Okay, so basically, in an MMORPG game, there will be a lot of players that you will be seeing on the game. So these are all individual players that play your game, okay, around the world. This could be hundreds, thousands, or hundreds of thousands players playing at the same time. Okay, so that will be the main difference of your MMORPG as compared to your usual RPG. Usual RPGs are mostly played individually, or sometimes you can play them within a LAN. Okay, but with MMORPG, this game is available for thousands or hundreds of thousands of players to play at the same time. Okay, so as you can see, this is this character. Okay, usually characters that will have different colored names or sometimes box in their names are usually NPCs or non-player characters, wherein you can converse with them in order for them to give you quests or sometimes to give you buffs or to give you items. So in this particular example, once you click this NPC or non-player character, it will show a dialogue box for you to converse with the NPC. Okay, so initially, when you start playing your MMORPGs, what you're going to do here is to grind your experience points. So every time you kill your experience points, or every time you kill monsters, you'll be gaining experience points. Okay, so again, those experience points will be used in order for you to level up within the game. So what are the basic things that you'll be seeing in this user interface for your MMORPGs? So this is your character. So this are some of the options that are available for you within the game. So this bag refers to the inventory. This button, when clicked, will show you all the items that you currently own or your character currently own. You'll also have your minimap, okay? You'll have your skills or your attack option. And you'll also have your potions. So in here, you have your quest. Okay, so this quest, so let's say trial number 1, reply to Bernie, you're tasked to go back to this NPC, Bernie. So that is 26 meter away from you. So the minimap will be showing you how you can get to this NPC. And also, you'll be seeing your HP bar and your mana bar for your character that you have. Okay, so again, this is the NPC that we're referring earlier. So now let's continue. So in summary, the main identifying features of an MMORPG game will be the following. A high-speed internet connection is required to play. Yes, because this is online. Okay, thousands of players online simultaneously. So game is online and active constantly. Paid accounts often required to play within game purchases or upgrades are also available. So next, we have your puzzle games. So, for the puzzle games often require the player to solve puzzles or problem and can involve the exercising of logic, memory, pattern matching, reaction time, etc. In recent years, the growing popularity has led to a return to prominence for puzzle games with the likes of Candy Crush and Cut the Rope particularly. So, other examples of this game includes Tetris, Intelligent Cube, Puzzle Bubble, Wetrix, Puyo Puyo, Devil Dice, Mercury, The Room, Candy Crush, Cut the Rope, and Word the Men. So I won't be showing you an example of this game because I assume some of you already played this game using your mobile phone, such as the Candy Crush, Cut the Rope, okay, etc., etc. So in summary, the main identifying features of a puzzle games will be the following. The objective is to solve a puzzle. Intelligent as opposed to skills with game controls are key. So, unique situation or setting forms the main game theme. Reaction times can also be tested as the game progresses. For example, Tetris. Next, we have your simulation games. So, by nature, simulation games are attempt to accurately recreate an experience. So, this can be in a form of management of simulation like SimCity and Team Hospital, or more hands-on like Microsoft Flight Simulator or Gran Turismo. So, for simulation games, we have subgenres of this. So, the first one, we have your sports simulation. Sports simulation games are a genre of video games which attempt to provide the player with realistic interpretation of playing a specific game. So, let's try to check a game that is under sports simulation. So, I assume everyone's familiar with this game. This is your NBA 2K21. So, regardless of the version, this NBA games is a great example of a sports simulation game. Okay, so wherein you as a player controls one team, okay, to play against another. So next, let's continue. Aside from this sports simulation, we'll also have your vehicle simulation. So vehicle simulation games are a genre of games which attempt to provide the player with a realistic interpretation of operating various kinds of vehicles. Now, what's the main difference in terms of setup when playing your sports simulation or your vehicle simulation? In playing sports simulation, you can basically play this using your keyboard in a PC game or your controller on your console. But in vehicle simulation, in order for you to basically simulate how vehicles run, you'll be needing specialized gaming peripherals. Okay, so let's try to check on this. So this is an example of a setup that can be used for a vehicle simulation like a car. Wherein we have your steering, you have your pedals below, okay? You have your seat that moves based on the game, okay? So let's check the performance of this type of simulation games. Okay, so as you can see, as I have mentioned earlier, the chair moves along with the game. So it was connected into the game, okay? That will be giving you an accurate simulation of how will a vehicle will feel like as if you're sitting in there. Okay, so this is one of the example of your vehicle simulation game. Now, aside from vehicle simulation game, you also have your life simulation. So, social simulation games base their gameplay on the social interaction between multiple artificial lives. So, the most famous example from this genre is Will's Wright The Sims. So, let's try to check a video of The Sims. Okay, so this is The Sims. So, in this game, basically, what you're going to do or what's happening in here is you're simulating life. Okay, excuse me. So you're simulating life. So we're in this game, you can simulate working for an office environment, or you can also simulate, let's say, going out, socializing with other people. Okay, so again, this is an example of your life simulation. It basically simulates what you're doing in real life. In summary, the main identifying feature of simulation games will be the following. So, replicate a real-life experience as best as possible, first-person view or else controlling an avatar or avatars. So, photorealistic graphics often used to enhance real-life experience. Intelligent AI key to simulate a real-life experience. Okay. Next we have is your real-time strategy or your RTS games. Strategy games attempt to capture a sense of realism for the game player to experience. So, real-time strategy games, as the name suggests, have an in-game clock, and the gameplay event progress in real time, which means they can be highly addictive and time-consuming. So, RTS games typically define a number of goals around resources collection, base and unit construction, and engagement in combat with other players or computer opponents who also share similar goals. So emphasis is often placed upon managing logistics, resources, and production. With the continuing development of online gaming and mobile gaming, there has been a rise in multiplayer online mobile RTS games such as Sparta, Clash of Clans. I assume you're familiar with Clash of Clans, and Boom Beach. So franchises that fall into this genre includes Worms, June 2, Command and Conquer, Final Fantasy Tactics, Age of Empires, Dawn of War, and Clash of Clans. Okay, so let's try to check a video of a RTS game. Okay, so this is an example of your RTS game. So usually in RTS games, so your objective is basically to build units, to build structures, gather resources, and attack enemies. Okay, so in here, in this part of the game, this player is still constructing the units and buildings that is required in order to produce resources such as the units that can be used to launch attacks. So here we have an example where the player collects wood that can be used to build structures. Now, so in here, this is the part wherein the resources or the units that you have can be used now to battle or to attack a village or to destroy another village. So that will be an example of your real-time strategy game. So basically real-time strategy game rotates within building resources, collecting units, building units, and attacking uh, other enemies. Next. So after your no, let's proceed with the main identifying features for your strategy games. So these are the following. So gameplay events occur in real time. Gathering and managing resources form a key part of the gameplay. Players often has a base to defend or a territory to manage and expand. Can be played against AI or artificial intelligence or online against other players within the same game map. Next, we also have your turn-based strategy game. So like simulation, strategy tactics game, attempt to capture a sense of realism for the game player to experience. However, turn-based games are opposed to real-time strategy, give the player a greater sense of specific control over situation without the pressure of real-time clock, which can pressure the player into decision. Now, the main difference with your real-time strategy and your turn-based strategy will be the removal of the clock system for turn-based strategy, wherein it's up to the player how long he will take his time in order to execute a gameplay. Okay? So, turn-based strategy games can also be considered an evolution of traditional board games such as Monopoly, Scrabble, chess, and draughts or checkers. So, let's say for example in chess. So, chess is an example of a turn-based game wherein the two players can't move chess pieces at the same time. So, as it has mentioned, it was turn-based. So, let's say for example, player number 1 will first move his or her pieces or piece. Now, player number 2 can't move any of his or her piece without player 1 moving his piece. Okay? So that's why it's called turn-based. One player at a time can make a move within the game. Okay? So, classic turn-based strategy franchises include Civilization, Total War, Endless Legend, Endless Wonders, and Lord of the Realm. So, let's check an example of a game. So, this game is XCOM 2. So, in here, this is an example of a turn-based tactics game. So, let's say in a game, you can manage, I believe, some units, let's say 4 units. Then, these units can only move one at a time. Okay? So, as you can see, you have your units in here. You can only move them one at a time. You can move all 4 of these units or characters at the same time. So, that's why it's called turn-based strategy or turn-based tactics game. So, let's check this one. So, in order for you to progress with the game, you need to properly place the characters or your players within the game in order for you to defeat the enemy. It's like playing chess, but a more detailed version of chess. Okay? Next. So, the main identifying features of turn-based strategy games will be the following. Each player, or a computer AI, takes turn to make a move. Logical and tactical gameplay, building alliances with other players and declaring war on others. Next, we have your fighting games. In fighting games, the player typically fights other players or the computer in some form of one-on-one combat. Many of these games include a single-player mode, but the real draw to this genre is the ability to demonstrate one's gaming prowess against a friend or an enemy. So example of franchises in this genre include Double Dragon, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Virtua Fighter, Dead or Alive, King of Fighters, Bloody Roar. So let's check a video of a sample of a fighting game. So this is Tekken 7. So this will be an example of your fighting game. So wherein you can fight one-on-one. You can use skills and combos in order for you to diminish the HP of your enemy. So in fighting games, this is usually one versus one type of gameplay. But there will be several times that aside from using a single character, you can use 2 or 3 characters. Okay, but still this is one versus one because only one player or one versus one structure because it's a one versus one. You can't add a third player within the game. Okay. Next. So, in summary, the main identifying feature of a fighting game will be the following. Complex character controls for wide range of player movements. One versus one battles as part of the tournament, usually the game structure. Increase opponent difficulty as tournament progresses. Player health bar with key HUD or HUD element. Can be violent. So, let's say, for example, you have Mortal Kombat. HUD refers to heads-up display. So, heads-up display will usually show you items like your HP bar, okay, the character you're playing, the number of combos that you're using within the game. Next, we have your dance and rhythm games. So, rhythm games require the player to undertake some action. For example, follow a sequence of movement or develop specific rhythms and respond to some stimulus. That will be, most of the time, music. Many require a specialized controller such as a floor mat, the Wii controller, the balance board, PlayStation Move, Xbox Kinect, or adapted musical instrument controller. So, this grouping of games is differentiated by the time elements, usually synced to music somehow. Dance Dance Revolution is the best example for your dance and rhythm game. So, for Dance Dance Revo, you have arrows that you need to step following the instructions into the game or following the sequence that is being displayed with the game. So, famous example of this game genre include Paparapa, the Rapper, Basta Groove, Frequency, Beatmania, iToy Groove, Dance Central, Just Dance, Guitar Hero, Drums Challenge, and Dance Star Party. So, let's check a video of Guitar Hero. So, in Guitar Hero, this particular example, he's playing the drums for a song. I believe this is from Bon Jovi. So, as you can see, this is the pattern that he needs to follow in order for him to score within the game. Then, these are specialized gaming peripherals that he is using, okay, to input to the game to match the sequence that is needed by the game. Okay? So, in summary, the main identifying features of a dance or rhythm game are the following. So, timing, a key part of the gameplay. Most physical active of all game genres requires a specialized controller, uses classic and contemporary music tracks within the game. Okay. Now, lastly, we have your survival horror game. So, these titles are an interactive evolutionary step of the horror and surviving genres and are an example of a hybrid game outgrowing its origin. The main gameplay mechanic in this is to survive the environment that includes fantastic or supernatural elements that are very frightening and often disturbing. So many of these game titles are rated mature because they are not intended for younger audiences and often include graphic scenes. Alone in the Dark provides a notable early example, whilst the Resident Evil series is a current notable example. So, classic survival games include Alone in the Dark, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Dead Space, Fear, Until Dawn, and The Last of Us. So, let's check a video of an example of a horror survival. So, this is a scene taken from Resident Evil 7. So, as you can see, the characters in here are eating the insides, I assume insides from human being. Okay? So most of the time when you're playing this horror survival, they are generally in a setting where it's very dark or usually happens during at night. Okay? So also horror survival genre will also introduce elements of first person shooter, sometimes first person shooter games. Okay, there will be several times in here you need to fight enemies by shooting at them. It's either in first person or third person. One good example of another horror survival game is your Left 4 Dead. If you're familiar with Left 4 Dead. Okay. So this is an example of your horror survival game. So in summary, the main identifying feature of a survival horror games will be the following. So usually, first-person view with atmospheric level design and lighting. Music and sound effects play a big part than in other game genres. So jump scares are a genre-specific feature. Okay? In game combat, not a primary feature with stealth and avoidance of enemies often is the preferred approach. So those will be the main identifying features for your horror survival game. For as of the moment, those are only the genres and game subgenres that will be covering at the moment. So again, as I have mentioned earlier, there are a tons of genres and subgenres out there. So for the time being, these are some of the genres that we'll be covering for this lesson.